Welcome back to Fantasy OT. Today we're going to be breaking down 5 tight ends that are poised to break out. Starting things off at number 5, the man who finished as Notre Dame's all-time leader in receptions at tight end, Michael Mayer. It could be argued that Mayer had a more decorated college career than Dalton Kincaid, who was drafted ahead of him. The Vegas Raiders drafted him in the second round this year, and I think he's going to burst onto the scene. I know they currently have Austin Hooper as their number 1, but you don't spend draft capital like that unless you intend on using the player right away. Mayer finished his career at Notre Dame averaging 8 touchdowns and 825 yards over his last 2 seasons as a full-time starter. Those numbers should translate very well to the NFL level. But the main reason why I think he's going to have success is because of his coach. In 6 of his 9 seasons as the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, Josh McDaniels produced a top 5 tight end in terms of total touchdowns. And I think that bodes well for Mayer. And I know you may be thinking, well, okay, if I had Rob Gronkowski as my tight end, I could probably do the same thing. But that's just it. He did it with Martellus Bennett and guys like Hunter Henry. And I'm sure he would have done it last year with Darren Waller had Darren Waller not gotten injured. McDaniels clearly likes to use his big targets in the red zone, and I think now with 2 healthy tight ends, he's going to get back to conducting business the way he was in New England. What also helps Mayer is the fact that Waller and Morrow are no longer on the team. So even if Hooper is technically the number 1 guy on the depth chart, I don't think that's going to diminish Mayer's role in any way. If you're looking to take a flyer on someone in the latter rounds, he's definitely a guy to think about. Coming up at number 4, Juwan Johnson. Derek Carr loves his tight ends. In fact, he loves them so much that over the last 5 seasons, he's never had a tight end finish lower than 8th overall in terms of total targets. And yeah, he had Darren Waller, very impressive, but he was always on and off the field. He also did this with Jared Cook and Foster Moreau, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. So I think it goes without saying that Juwan Johnson is going to see a big uptick in targets. Last year, he was kind of a touchdown specialist, and this is with Andy Dalton throwing him the ball. Johnson still managed to end his season 5th overall in terms of total red zone stats, ahead of guys like Mark Andrews and Dalton Schultz. Pretty impressive if you ask me. So I would expect him to, at the very least, match, if not improve on his 7 touchdowns from last year, especially with a quarterback like Derek Carr. Coming up at number 3, I was actually fortunate enough to see this man play in real life, and he's the real deal. Dalton Kincaid. The Bills moved up to the 25th pick this year to draft him, and I think they did that because they intend to use him right away. They've been desperate for a second playmaker outside of Stephon Diggs for a while now. Gabe Davis just hasn't filled that role. He's become more of a deep threat that routinely drops balls in critical situations, unfortunately. They also have Khalil Shakir, but they're not sure what they have in him, and I know it's kind of strange that they would draft a tight end in the first round, given that they just gave Dawson Knox such a hefty extension this last offseason, but even Knox has been very hot or cold throughout his career. So I could see Kincaid getting on the field even if he's not listed as a starter. During his last 2 seasons at Utah, he ended up averaging 13.2 yards a catch and 8 touchdowns a season. I think that's going to translate very well to the Bills' offense. I think Allen's going to regularly target him and look for him in the red zone. So I think no matter what, he's actually going to get a ton of work, and you may actually have to draft him. He will not be on the waivers. Coming in at number 2, the new tight end for the Big D, Jake Ferguson. Just like Derek Carr, Dak Prescott loves his tight ends, specifically the one atop the depth chart. In 6 of Dak's 7 seasons, the tight end has never finished lower than 9th in terms of total tight end targets. And I think Ferguson's going to step right into that role and receive the same type of work, especially the way Dak's been going the last couple of seasons. Over the last 2 years, Schultz finished as the 5th and 6th most targeted tight end in the league, respectively. So I think Ferguson's going to come in and be a safety valve for Dak right away. And while yes, Prescott had Jason Witten in the early stages of his career, Dalton Schultz was a relatively unknown until Dak made him relevant. And ironically enough, Ferguson is a 4th round pick, just like Schultz. And even with a new play caller in Mike McCarthy and a new offensive coordinator in Brian Schottenheimer, I think the Cowboys are still going to dial up their tight end plenty. And considering the state of the tight end position, you can really never have enough depth. I think he's a great person to take a chance on in the later rounds, or if you draft someone like a Darren Waller or a Kyle Pitts and they fall short of expectations, Ferguson could be a great insurance pick. Topping our list at number 1, Chigga. I think everybody knows what the Titans' formula is for success at this point. Give the ball to Derrick Henry and get out of the way. And that's worked pretty well for them up until now. But I think in today's NFL, you've got to start opening up the passing game a bit to stay competitive. With the Jaguars ascending, and now the Titans' last couple of seasons have ended, I think it's clear that they need to start introducing a passing game into the mix a little bit more, which is why I think they drafted Treylon Burks and signed DeAndre Hopkins. Okonkwo came on pretty strong during his rookie season, and he was even able to finish the entire season, something a lot of rookies aren't able to do as they usually hit a wall. And I think this year, he's going to take a big leap. What makes me most excited about Okonkwo is that he finished the year 15th overall in the league, not amongst tight ends, in the league, averaging 14.1 yards per catch. That's tied with Justin Jefferson and DJ Moore. Impressive to say the least. It puts him in a league of his own amongst tight ends. So I think this year, he's poised for a big breakout, especially with the guys I just mentioned taking attention away from him in Henry, Hopkins, and Burks. It could be argued that Okonkwo is inside the top 10, and I think he should definitely be drafted before the 9th round. You don't want to let him fall down draft boards. That does it for me here on Fantasy OT. Please subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments below.